A week or so ago, Amanda Stavely and Medad Gadusi were interviewed by The Athletic, where they discussed, amongst other things, their strategic vision for Newcastle, but also amongst that, what they hoped to have in terms of a new training facility for Newcastle going forward. Now, I've been piecing together what's been said by Amanda and Medad Gadusi, also filling in with some background information that we already know, and with some additional research where I've been doing a little bit digging to answer some questions as to what exactly do the new owners want in terms of a new training facility, what they need, how big this land is likely to be, and where they are likely to build a new stadium. So in this video, I'm going to try and answer some of those questions. It's coming up. Hello, my name's Eddie. Welcome to my channel Tyneside Life, where I focus on the football, history and culture of Newcastle and the general Tyneside area. So if you're new here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you get a notification every time I release a new video. So back to the content of this particular video and the potential new training facilities. And about 2 weeks ago, or just under 2 weeks ago, I released a video talking about the Newcastle United owners probably going to build Newcastle a new stadium and where I thought that was likely to be. Only for 3 days later for Amanda Stavely and Medad Gadusi to be interviewed in The Athletic, where they revealed that they have no intention of building a new stadium. I would have got away with this if it hadn't been for those pesky kids. So it was quite apparent from my point of view that I was seduced and a bit blinded by the link of the Reuben brothers redeveloping the whole of the Pilgrims Quarter and the staff from the Tyneview Park site moving from there to Pilgrims Quarter. I thought the new stadium was going to be the showpiece for Newcastle United. Turns out, having listened and read about the interview with Amanda, that the showpiece is going to be the training facilities and not a new stadium. As part of that interview, Amanda also mentioned that she visited Man City's Etihad Complex campus and the Leicester City new training ground, which opened up just a couple of years ago. And she's a huge admirer of those training facilities and wants to mirror or certainly have a new training complex for Newcastle United that's on a par with the Man City's and Leicester's and top 6 of the Premier League. So the first question is, what exactly do Amanda Stavely and the owners want in terms of a new training facility for Newcastle? Well, like I say, I think they want a showpiece, something that's world class, that's on a par with Leicester City's, for example, which is arguably one of the best training facilities in the world. And she's also expressed her desire to have the women's team integral and inclusive to that new training facility complex. She doesn't want the women's team annexed out into the countryside somewhere else. She wants a giant training facility where everything is included, with all obviously the first team, professional team, the youth team, the academy headquarters, the women's setup, sports science, everything. Now, in order to achieve that, that's going to take quite a chunk of land, which is why I think she said it could take 3 years, even more, to even find the right piece of land to start developing, because they need to obviously first of all find that land, but then put all the design plans together and all the planning permission. So this is going to take quite a while. In terms of the land size, well, if you look at Man City's Etihad campus, for example, that's including the stadium, I believe it's about 80 acres, and Leicester City's is about 180 acres. That's a massive piece of land, and I'm just going to give you a couple of examples to put things into perspective of what that kind of area of land looks like. St James's Park, that's give or take, it's about 10 acres. I've also put a little photo on there to give you an idea as to what 100 acres looks like. But also, if you think of the Town Moor joined with Hunters Moor and Nuns Moor, that's about 900 acres. Now, I'm clearly no planning developer or an architect, but judging from the size of the Etihad in particular, you're probably, I'm guessing, looking at a minimum of around about 60 acres to fulfill the needs to have everything inclusive in a training centre. Also as well, with Leicester City's training complex, 180 something acres. That's a massive piece of land. But what they've also done as well, they've engineered a carbon offset with that. They've planted about 21,500 trees. They've also planted thousands of square metres of seeds and shrubs in order to attract native wildlife. So clearly, if we had that sort of size land, then that's probably something that Newcastle United would do as well. But it's certainly not necessary to have that quantity of land. We also have to factor in the input that Dan Ashworth is going to bring when he eventually joins Newcastle United, whenever that is. You read some sources, especially from Brighton, who seem to suggest it could be the end of this year. Other sources suggest it could be in the summer. I think it all boils down to whether a financial settlement can be made. But he's going to be integral to the influences to what he needs. And I think they're going to try and avoid at all costs splitting the complex into two different areas. If they can't get a big enough land, for example, having the women's set up somewhere else, I don't think they really want to have Dan Ashworth, who's going to be making sure all of these departments run smoothly, in the morning, for example, being with the academy set up and doing work over there, then jumping in his car and driving across Newcastle to have a look at the women's setup. So I think they're really determined to have everything together, but it may not be that easy because obviously it all boils down to land. So what do they need? Well, if you look at Leicester's and Man City's setups, Leicester City have 21 training pitches, and they have another pitch, kind of like a stadium pitch with about 500 seats, but they've also got this state-of-the-art indoor training facility. Man City, they have 16 training pitches, and they have a 7,000 seater stadium which they use for youth matches and the women's football. If you look at Leicester City's indoor training centre, and because it's built into the countryside, they've had to develop their whole training facility so it blends in with the landscape. So their indoor training centre, I believe, is set down into the ground somewhat, and it has a curved roof with solar paneling on the top, and the technology in there, I believe, is state of the art. So it can be regulated, the atmosphere inside the building can be regulated to the temperature and humidity conditions of another country. So for example, if the team were going to go to the Far East or the Middle East on a football tour, for example, they could allow their players to acclimatise within their indoor training facility by just adjusting the environmental settings. So the indoor training complex isn't just about training indoors when the weather's bad. It's a lot more technical than that. So for Newcastle, they're going to need something similar to what Leicester and Man City have, probably a minimum of around about 15 training pitches with underground heating. They're going to want to have a sports science department and physio department, MRI department, gyms, swimming pools, restaurant, probably some luxury accommodation thrown in. So they're going to have a whole host of things, but the indoor complex is probably going to be, especially if it's in the countryside, something very similar to what Leicester City have, so they can blend it in with the landscape of the surrounding area. I personally also think that they'll want to have something like what Man City has, with a smaller 7,000 or 8,000 seater stadium for the youth teams and the women's team to play there. So the next question is, where is it likely to be built? Where there's going to be land big enough to accommodate this? And in my previous video, I did talk about the Benton Park site where the staff are going to be moving to Pilgrim's Quarter. And the land there on paper, certainly what from I can see, is possibly big enough for a training complex. But would the owners really want world-class players in 5 years' time driving through the school-run traffic, getting stuck in traffic jams and being pestered by fans and the press? I'm not convinced. The next piece of land that's often thrown out there is the racecourse, which of course is owned by Jamie Rubin. So you have a lot of people who say, well, Jamie Rubin owns that land, so they're going to build stuff on there, or in Gosforth Park right next to it. I think if that was going to happen, it would already be in motion and discussed. And there's some big complications with that as well. He's obviously not going to get rid of a racecourse to put a football facility on there. The land just around it to the north is surrounded by golf courses and woodland, and I don't think they're going to be spoiling anything there. And just north of that land, about 70 odd acres of it is a wildlife nature reserve, and you've got no chance of building on a wildlife nature reserve. And directly west of that land on the other side of the A1 is another wildlife nature reserve, and again the only thing you're going to build on there is a bird hide. So now we're moving into an area where a lot of people already think it's the probable area, and that's going to be the northwest to the city, somewhere close to the airport, somewhere close to Darras Hall where a lot of the players live, somewhere that's private, somewhere in the countryside. And we get a clue as to where the owners may be going with this, because they recently looked at Woolsington Hall, which is owned by Sir John Hall, and it's surrounded by around about 90 acres of land. But I'm not sure if Sir John Hall owns that land or it's owned partly by him or not at all. I think there might be some talk of some of it being greenbelt land, some of it wildlife nature reserves, some of it parkland. So it's really quite complex, but I know they did look at it. There was an interview by Chris Woff recently where he did mention that it was looked at and it has been dismissed because of various planning complications in relation to that particular land, because it Woolsington has its own hall, Woolsington Hall, John Hall owns, and it's been fallen into a state of disrepair over recent years, and it's on the England National Heritage list as being at risk. And in 2015 it was actually set on fire and there was a considerable amount of damage caused to the roof and the floors. So it has been looked at, and by all accounts from what I can gather it has been dismissed, but we get a big clue as to where Amanda Stavely and the team might be headed with this. And I just did a random search on Rightmove for any properties of a similar ilk to Woolsington Hall that might be for sale, and I come up with this Millborn Hall, which is a few miles away, and it's a beautiful stately home. It's a grade 1 listed building, and it's set in, I think, 24 acres of wooded gardens, but directly in the front of that property is approximately 55 to 60 acres of land. So I have no idea if they have looked at that property. They might have, but it would seem quite an obvious choice, since we think we know where they're going with this, that they might have looked at this property and other similar properties in that northwest region of the city. If it was Millborn Hall, which is for sale for just under 4 million, if you've got some spare change, the particular building would be ideal. You would obviously leave it the same on the outside, but the inside could be converted into obviously a huge reception area. You'll have your restaurant, you'll have conference rooms, classrooms, MRI, physiotherapy, luxury accommodation for players and families, but also some lovely gardens and surrounds. I think it might be also big enough to accommodate a swimming pool. So Amanda Stavely has said that they don't have all the answers yet. They are looking at particular different sites, but obviously that's why Jamie Rubin's been brought on board with his expertise in the property development world. He'll be doing a lot of work in relation to this. I'm sure there's been lots of conversations going on, and they're going to continue to go on, but this is going to take a long time, and I think we're just going to have to be patient. In the short term, for the next 3 or 4 years, I think we're just going to have to make do. I know Amanda and the team have been going around all the various departments and the training facilities that we already have, and speaking with staff, and of course Mike Ashley, he just ran the whole operation on a shoestring with minimum staffing. So Amanda Stavely's been going around asking what everybody needs, and I think they've got a pot of, I think I read, about 40 million to make some short-term investments into bringing everything up to a more acceptable standard, and that could be extra staff, more training, it could be better IT facilities, I don't know. But in the short term, we're going to be seeing some more investment in the training facilities with what we currently have. There we have it. To summarise, I think they're going to have to purchase land somewhere in the countryside northwest of the city to a size of approximately 60 to 80 acres roughly. Well, let me know what you think in the comments below. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe because it helps me showcase the Geordie area. And my next video, I think, is going to be on Sunday. I'm showcasing the Wonder Bar sports bar in the Gate when Newcastle United play Chelsea. If you'd like to come along and join us, you know where I'll be.